Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here. Coming at you once again with coffee and chat with Greg Bruce. And we're doing Create Your Own to Own Your Own. Create Your Own to Own Your Own. This is focused on cooperative economics in the Black community. So let's get this thing started. At the end of the day, if you don't own it, you don't control it. If you don't own it, you don't have much of a say in it. If you don't own it, you have trouble sometimes dealing with it and what it means. What I mean by it. If you don't own the entity, if you don't own the system, if you're not having a hands-on involvement with it, the process is stemming back to this concept right here. You can't expect the government or any other institution to support or strengthen economic growth in your community. It's not going to come by way of the educational system. It's not going to come by way of the social structure. It's by nature, particularly when you have a democratic process and you represent the minority, right? So inherently, you either have to compromise or combine with someone else in many cases to advance. And that's not always to your long-term advantage. And so you can't expect any of that. And government handouts work out as long as those government heads remain in office. And that's how their tenure, not about the good of your community. God bless. If you understand that and you can grasp that concept, you can understand why I am pushing on this, coming back from what we talked about with Chocolate City commerce and those chocolate cities and what happened to those chocolate cities. And now here we are talking about cooperative economics in the Black community. Get where I'm headed with this. Get where I'm headed with this and get on board so we can talk about it some more. And if you don't create your own, don't trip. You just won't have much of a say in it. You won't have much control of it or over it. You're just going to have to deal with whatever is made of it. And that's the problem. That's why we have food deserts. That's the problem. That's why we have issues of food security and insecurity among people. That's why we have people who are couch surfing and are not technically homeless, but don't necessarily have anywhere to settle down from day to day and know where their next meal is coming from. That's why our economic status and census looks crazy right now. So own your own. Create something for your own community. Here we go. And this makes sense, right? Long before there was a New Deal from Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, long before there was any of that, the church and Black people, right? The church, Black people, minorities had long been doing social and economic improvement for their communities. The co-ops and all of this, farmers insurance came out of a co-op, right? Foresters came out of a co-op, right? Because there were people in a particular industry who needed to combine their resources in order to survive and make it through common conditions. And so here it is. The Free African Society. I've talked about this before. Absalom Jones, Richard Allen, who's in Philly. The Negro Cooperative Guild, WB, right? He organized this. I'm talking about 1918, right? Here we go. Marcus Garvey with the UNIA. Think about it. We talked about this during Black Business Month. The grand founding of the United Order of True Reformers, a group that had their own business, had their own enterprise, had their own bank, right? What are we thinking? Had their own hotels, and we can't get together on a real estate deal? Come on, y'all. This is something that we know is possible because we have examples from the past. Let me give you this one. And I haven't covered this in a while, but I wanted to bring it back. Sarah Rector, right? Early turn of the century, 1902, early turn of the century, was coming from being a member of what we know as the Creek Nation, Muskogee, right? Being part of the Creek Nation and also known as the richest colored girl in the world. The millionaire girl, right, who did this thing, Rector, was already a millionaire by the time she was 18. She owned stock, bonds, had a boarding house, various businesses, owned 2,000 acres of prime river bottom land, right? And at that point, she left Tuskegee, right, and moved her entire family to Kansas City, where she bought a home on what is known as 12th Street, that's still known today as the Rector House. This is during a period, right, that we know as Jim Crow, during a period that we know where people were just getting together to fight for their rights and dealing with lynchings. And this woman was a millionaire. And she moved her entire family from state to state. We've got a history of black-owned banks that we've covered before. William Washington Brown and what they were able to do with the bank that they founded. And now we've got One United, which is a premier bank of urban communities, which is the largest black-owned bank, the first internet bank, first internet black bank, and a community development financial institution. And then we also have Citizens Trust Bank, which is still traded as an over-the-counter stock today. So believe me, these black banks still exist. We're not in the number that we once were as far as black banks, but they still exist. And they're out here still trying to survive. Broadway Financial, right, and Carver are also two publicly traded black bank stocks, that are covered in one of the episodes I did before. We got to keep up with this. We got to keep up. We're talking about black stocks. What did I say? Create your own, own your own. And as you do that, you have a say in it. As a stockholder, you have a say in it. As a shareholder, you have a say in it. And that makes a difference. When you own part of it, you can actually be in charge. You can share it. You can talk about it. You can speak on it. You can vote on it. You have voting rights as a shareholder. And so as a shareholder, you're in a different position than just a customer or a member, right? Of say, you have a different level of voting rights. And so take that into consideration. Depending on how it's structured, ownership may override membership. Bless you on that one. And we're moving on here, the principle, right? The principle is coming from in a form cooperative. When we come together as a cooperative, those things mean a lot. And when we come together and share what we own, that means a big difference in how we deal with the different stuff that's coming into view as owners, right? And as we deal with this as owners, we're dealing with this in a manner to where we put our resources together and we create opportunities for ourselves within our own communities. And it makes our communities serve as a fortress for invade and rob our communities, gentrify our communities, and just pilfer them into becoming landlords and doing things that can tear up our communities and restructure our communities to where we don't even recognize them in the future. So we need to take responsibility for putting together our resources and pooling our resources, putting our resources into one pool and making them regenerate more working dollars to protect the integrity of our community. Do we have a historical society that is looking out to protect the identity of Black businesses within the community? Do we have a historical society that's looking out to protect the legacy of minority businesses and women-owned businesses within the community? Do we have a type of grassroots group who is honoring and celebrating and providing scholarship, book donations, and things of that nature to the educational community in order to support learning and understanding about how to develop further economically? Do we have those in place, or are we just fooling around and waiting for someone else to do it for us? No, we have to do it ourselves. Listen, if you don't own your own, you're going to have trouble. If you don't own your own, you're going to have trouble. And when you don't own your own, you're going to have trouble managing what other people have done and done for you and against you. Let me, and this is not to say that we can't do our own thing, right? This is not saying we can't do our own thing, but when we do our own thing, we've got to be mindful of how that plays out, how that looks, right, in the community, right? And doing our own thing is going to be about what we share and how we show people that we are able, right, that we are able to do it and do it properly. When I say do it properly, I'm talking about do it in a manner to where people can see us, right? People can see us and see what we're doing. When we own it, is it what you have come to understand? And when we break down how we can operate as owning our own, do we see that owning our own community development corporations can lead to further economic development and a legacy of economic development? Do we see that? Do we understand that? How about this? When we own our own seats, right? Our own seats on local commissions and associations, we also oversee local improvement projects that occur within our neighborhoods. Are we in a position by what we own and the partnerships and community development corporations that we're operating? Are we generating jobs, stimulating economic growth, fostering innovation, and funding projects? Are we doing that? When we own our own place at the table for regional and local Chamber of Commerce meetings, are we taking advantage of relationships and resources that can help us further advance our community? If we're doing that, we're doing what we should be doing and doing it in a manner that is great. And I say that's great because that's what we need. That's where we need to be, and that's what we need to be fostering. We need to be doing this in such a way to where people see us, understand it's us, and accept us for what we're doing. We need to own our own. We need to own our own, and we need to take it and take it to another level to where we can do these things that are happening. And I did the research. I did the research. They're doing it. They're doing it in a lot of industries, especially the food industry. They're doing it in Detroit. They're doing it in Chicago, uh, California out here. They're doing it in Oakland. They're doing it in LA. Right? What are we doing? Right? Check these out. Get these. Get to pick these up. Get on there and check them out. They're doing it through cooperative economics. And here, buyblack.org did a article for Black Business Month, on Black cooperative economics. I didn't discover it until afterwards, but it stands out that here we go. We have the possibility of learning from what we're seeing and taking that into account and making something more of it than just what we are talking about. And I'm saying this from I guess I can say this from a simple perspective that there's a history of Black cooperative economics that we haven't even fully explored that already exists, right? That has a past as well. And we are, some of us are just catching up to it, right? And some of us have been awaiting it. And so when we know these things, when we accept these things, we can move on and have a better chance of developing a stronger, healthier Black community throughout the U.S., not just in pockets, but throughout the U.S. God bless.